What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. Thank you once again for joining us. Before we get into it, as always, if you're able to make sure you like and subscribe the podcast. If you're on Apple, jump on and leave a review. You'll also be able to find episodes of the podcast, video episodes on our YouTube channel. So the Unstoppable Dad Project on YouTube, and also on our Facebook page and Instagram page. So the Unstoppable Dad Project on Facebook and at the Unstoppable Dad on Instagram. There's links to all those in the show notes. There's also a link to our free group that we've got on Facebook as well, where you'll be notified about episodes and any products or anything like that that we launch as well. So if you want to jump on and add yourself into that, please feel free to do so. This week's going to probably be a little bit of a quicker one, and it's come about from just a thought that I've been having around people looking to get back into some form of training or some form of movement. I've done a few episodes now on like different elements of that. And one of the things and one common theme that I kind of go through quite a bit, whether it be on this podcast or it be with my clients, is to try not to overcomplicate things. So one of the things we've spoken about before, and I speak with a lot of people about, is just trying to make it as simple as possible. So one of the advantages of, say, and that is going to sound like a sales speech because it probably is, one of the advantages of obviously investing in a coach or investing in somebody like me is I'm going to give you a plan. So all you need to do is you just need to follow that plan. You don't need to think about it for yourself. You don't need to there are things within the plan that you're going to need to work out, i.e. where you're going to get the time from to do that. But that's a whole other conversation, one that we have touched on quite a bit. But it's got me thinking about like the lowest barrier for entry, the easiest way that somebody that is starting from a 0 point can just get into it. And I'm a big advocate of walking, right? Like just going for a walk. And usually like within our programs, I tell people to go for a walk on their off days or their training days, or even before they train. Like there are so many benefits in just getting out and going for a walk outside of just the physical. But if you're a person that is trying to get back into some regularity of training, whether it is that you want to lose some weight or you just want to feel better about yourself, walking is that low-hanging fruit that gets so often overlooked because people feel they need to overcomplicate things. And if you start off just looking at adding in a walk 3 to 4 to 5 times a week, there are a lot of little benefits that you are going to get from that. There's obviously the physical benefits. You're getting out, you're getting active, you're doing something. You can, if you're doing it where you're getting extra vitamin D exposure and you're getting your heart rate slightly elevated. You might be getting a light sweat on. It doesn't even need to be a run. It is just a light walk. And you do that for 30 minutes. There's the 10,000 steps thing. There's no like real science behind the 10,000 steps. All it is it's just a goal. Like it gives you a tangible metric that you're aiming towards, which can be good and it can be bad. But like just setting the watch, going for 30 minutes and just going for a walk out in nature can be so good for your physical well-being. And it can also be good for your mental well-being too. But if we're looking at it to try and set the foundation for something a little bit more longer term, so we're looking at eventually getting back into training. Firstly, it is going to raise our base level of fitness or capacity because we're doing something extra on top of what we've done before. You don't require any equipment to do it. You really don't require any thought to do it. You can just go and do it. And by doing that, you're starting to go through the process of prioritizing some time for yourself. And this is a really important thing, right? Because if we're trying to make this as simple as possible, if we talk about, say, for example, starting on one of our programs, for some people, that may be a bridge too far to begin with because they've got to sign up for the program. They've got to potentially go and find a gym or source some level of equipment, even though we have body weight, variations of that to begin with to try and reduce those barriers. But when we start to look at these things, and especially if we're hesitant about doing things in the first place, As soon as we start adding in these extra barriers, we add in the cost factor, which even though, and we can go down the rabbit hole of like it's not necessarily a cost, it's an investment. Like we can go through all that, but that's not what this podcast is about. But that's a barrier. We start looking at the time allocation because you're currently not prioritizing the time to do that. We start to look at the, like logistically, I've got to get in a car and drive to the gym, or I've got to find a gym. And all of a sudden, like these little things start to add up. Now, there is definitely ways around that. And there's definitely ways through that. And sometimes you've just got to knuckle up and you've just got to do it, right? But if that seems like a bridge too far, simply starting off with giving yourself a goal of going for a walk, a 30-minute walk 4 to 5 times a week, is a very, very easy way to start that process and start to move things in a direction where then when you want to look at adding in some form of resistance training or some form of program, it is less of a jump because you're already in the habit of prioritizing some time for yourself through the walks that you're doing. You're probably feeling a little bit more confident about your ability to actually complete this thing because you've stuck to your own word for whatever that period is, a 4 to 6 week period. You've potentially started to see some results outside of that. And then with that, and with a little bit of wind in your sails, you start to look to take that next step to progress a little bit further. And that, for a lot of people, when I really sat down and thought about this over the last couple of weeks and before I jumped on this podcast, some of the most successful people I have met over the years have started off in this way or similar, where they've just picked one thing that they are going to focus on, and they are going to focus on doing that for a 6 to 8 week, even like a 6 to 12 month period. And by doing that, what happens is you gain momentum and you gain confidence, so that when you have to make a bigger change or you have to allocate more time, the inherent understanding of the value you are going to get from that change changes in your mind. But most importantly, the self-confidence, because you've followed through on your word. And when it comes time for us to make a change, if we haven't been true to ourselves and true to our word, that can be a very massive roadblock because we don't believe we're going to complete the work required to make the change the rest of the way. It's something that thought process and that thought pattern, it's something that I've identified in my life quite a bit over the last, through this massive period of change that I'm going through right now, where some of my lack of self-confidence falls back on the fact that maybe I haven't completely followed through with things that I said I was going to do at different periods. There's been stuff that I have, there's been stuff that I haven't. Like it's a spectrum, it's a scale. But when it comes to, say, making a physical change and trying to do something for yourself, I've had a mentor say to me once, when you're talking to somebody about like, a program or trying to help them, make a change, there's generally 2 reasons they won't buy from you. They either don't believe you can help them or they don't believe they can help themselves. And if we've started the process, and again, back to walking is just such an underrated thing because it is such a low barrier for entry. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need anything else. You can literally walk out the front door around your neighborhood for 30 minutes and just go for a walk. And by doing that, you're going to start to allocate some time for yourself. For some of us as dads, like it might be also some time that you can start to put into family time as well too. Not only are you doing something for yourself physically, but you're doing something for, to spend some more quality time with your family. Something I love to do with the kids, right? Like I love to just take them for a walk. It used to be something that when I would walk, what I would do is I would actually I'd put my headphones in and I'd listen to a podcast or I'd listen to a book. And I've shifted the way I do it a lot over the last little while. And I almost prefer to walk now without listening to anything. And for me, it helps me get into a bit more of a meditative state if I'm doing it by myself, or if I'm doing it with the kids, it just lets me enjoy my time with them. And all too often, I think we feel like we've got to do more. For me, it was like I've got to consume more and consume more information. to be better at everything that I'm doing. But getting that rid of that and taking that away and just being in the moment, being in nature, being with the kids in that walk that you're doing, I've found has had a lot better mental benefits for me than listening to something. And to begin with, maybe you do. Maybe you need to listen to your favorite song or a bit of a pump up jam or something like that as you go and do it, especially if, you need that kind of jolt to get moving. But there is another mental aspect of that where we're just being in the moment with nature, trying to observe what's happening around us, where there is so much benefit in that from a mental point of view. So walking is just such an underrated thing. I can't stress on about it enough. So I felt it was so important to say that I decided to do a whole now 10-minute podcast episode on it. And there's a lot to unpack with that. But the big thing is, if you are really struggling to get something going, right, but you deep down, you want to make it, you want to do something for yourself, try and find the thing that's the lowest barrier for entry to you. Yes, I'm a big advocate in investing in a coach, getting a plan and doing all of that. Obviously, we sell programs and things like that. But having thought about this a little bit over the last few weeks, having a few different conversations with people, this is one of those things where I've just given you the advice and something that you can start doing without even talking to me or spending any money, especially if you're doing nothing. For some of you, it might be that you're looking to take it to the next level, and maybe you need a higher level thing. By all means, if that's you, reach out. But simply having the goal to go for a 30-minute to an hour walk 3 to 4 to 5 times a week is a very good starting point. You don't need anything to do it. The benefits are not only going to be physical, but I'd say for a lot of you, if you're feeling overwhelmed by that process, there's going to be a mental payoff there for it as well too. But just going out and doing it, because there are a lot of offshoots, as I've mentioned, that if you just use this as a stepping stone to get to something else, you will find the benefit in, and it will tick a lot of boxes when you do try to bump it up to that next level. You're already starting the process of allocating time for yourself. You're starting to raise that base level of physical ability just by doing something on top of what you've already done. And then there's that mental benefit there too, where if you follow through on it and you continue to do it, you're going to feel more confident in your ability to make a desired change on what you maybe want to. So that's it for this week. There's one thing with these podcasts I do with advice and things like that. And one thing that has really been playing on my mind a little bit, but I can only give you the advice. It is on you to actually take it and follow through with it. So I'm going to try and do a little bit more over the coming months where I give you really quick and easy tips and one thing to go in action. And there'll still be the mindset talk, letting you have an insight into kind of things that I'm struggling with, things that I've worked through and what's worked for me. But like today, there's one thing: go out. If you're struggling to get started and you're ready to make a change and you feel like you need to, and it feels like going and joining a gym or joining a program is that bridge too far, try and get yourself a walk in 3 to 5 times a week. Set that as a goal. Do that for 6 to 12 weeks and then get back to me and let me know how you go. All right, guys, take it easy. Take care. We'll see you next week. Bye.